Welcome and thanks for joining to hear us talk about enabling work from home scenarios using Microsoft management tools. My name is Matt Shadbolt, and with me I have your other favourite Australian Endpoint Manager PM, Scott Duffy.
Hi everyone, I'm Scott Duffy and I'm a PM in the Endpoint Manager team. Back to you, Matt.
Well, what a crazy timeline we're living in. A high percentage of your staff are now working from home and trying to stay as productive as they were in the office. We in Redmond have been working from home since March and have faced the same work from home challenges as many of you. In this session, we wanted to help you understand the tools available in the Microsoft stack to help your users be productive while ensuring your organization is secure. A quick overview of Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Wherever you are in your cloud management journey, whether you're still thinking about your move to Intune, you've started with co-management, or you're completely in the cloud, Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the ideal tool. It truly is your hub to unify security, apps, access, compliance, and end-user experiences across your entire technology estate. And because it can leverage Microsoft's powerful data set, it is also intelligent, delivering analytics and signals to keep you ahead of change, keeping costs down, and keeping your organization running smoothly, whatever the future brings. We believe partners are the key to success, and Microsoft Endpoint Manager is at the integration point for the M365 ecosystem. And now to today's agenda. First, we'll take a look at remote working trends, obviously highly impacted by COVID-19. Secondly, we'll talk about getting ready for cloud management and the steps required to get your endpoints cloud managed. Finally, we'll give you some guidance on what to prioritize once they are cloud managed and how to build upon that platform to further improve your users' experiences. And now over to Scott to talk about remote work trends.
Thanks, Matt. So here is a glimpse of how the pandemic is changing the modern workplace. We're seeing a huge shift in work from home right now. Not only are we seeing this growth reflected in our Endpoint Manager telemetry in terms of the number of devices enrolling into the service, but we're also seeing it in some of the latest industry analyst reports. This recent study from the last month shows a prediction of up to 300% increase in home-based working. Another important data point on the same report was that the surveyed workers responded overwhelmingly that they liked or loved the change to home-based working. And so this benefit in user satisfaction, along with some of the other ones that you might already know about, like saving in real estate costs or having access to larger pools of talent when you're hiring, tells us that there's some long-lasting benefits to the technology improvements that you make here, well beyond the global pandemic response. But the focus on this session is about you, about the IT guys and girls. How do you even manage your devices now that you don't have line of sight to on-prem domain controllers or config manager servers? What can you actually do from the cloud in terms of device management? What about new devices? How do you get them through their first time setup? How do you send them directly to users and managed via the cloud? And once they're in the cloud, what tools do you have at your disposal to drive some big valuable changes to productivity and security? Matt and I will show you some of the tools that you have available to deal with these challenges and then turn them into opportunities.
So as Scott mentioned, cloud management is more important than ever, and the first thing you'll need to do is get cloud ready. The first thing you'll want to do is make sure your on-prem clients are visible and manageable from the cloud. This means enabling cloud attaching Configuration Manager. By cloud attaching your Config Manager site, you'll continue to receive all of the on-prem management benefits they have in place today while unlocking new cloud value. Tenant Attach is a simple way to get started. Tenant Attach syncs all of your on-prem managed devices into the Endpoint Manager console for help desk admin visibility and security team configuration management. Optionally, you can also enable co-management, which unlocks device configuration, conditional access, and many other cloud-born features. Once your devices are visible in the cloud, we want to extend the already deployed on-prem capabilities to clients roaming on the internet. Enabling the Cloud Management Gateway allows Configuration Manager-only clients to check into a cloud instance management point and realize all of the Config Manager value you've had in place for over 20 years. By enabling Cloud Attach and the CMG, you're in the best place to start enabling productivity on remote devices. To show you how easy it is to get started, in this demo, I'm going to show you how to enable Cloud Attach and the Cloud Management Gateway. Okay, so to show you how easy it is to enable Tenant Attach and get your Configuration Manager only clients synced into the MEM console for visibility and management, I'm going to enable Tenant Attach in this Config Manager site. I'm here in Administration, and I'm going to select Cloud Services and Co-Management. Then I'm going to click the Configure Co-Management button. This is going to bring out the co-management wizard, but it also allows me to enable tenant attach. So the first thing I'm going to do is sign in with my administrative credentials into my mem tenant. Once I've signed in, you'll see an option here to upload to Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. This will essentially sync all of the device metadata from the Config Manager on-prem database into the cloud console so that they should all appear in the all devices list. There's also an option to enable automatic client enrollment for co-management. Co-management will allow us to do all of the rich modern management of the device, but isn't required for tenant attach. Here you can see all of my devices are to be synced in, or I could specify a specific collection. And I'm also going to enable endpoint analytics so that you can see the end user experience reporting and so forth. I'm not going to enable co-management in this demo, but this is something that you can do afterwards as well. In my summary screen, I'll get all the details of what I've just configured, and then it'll be enabled. So there's no requirement for Azure AD device join, nothing special that you need to do with group policy or clients. All this is really doing is attaching the on-prem config manager site to the cloud services and syncing in those devices. Once this wizard's complete, all of the config manager devices will show up in the all devices list and allow you to do things like security configuration management and remote actions. Now I'd like to show you how to configure your cloud management gateway. As I mentioned, the CMG allows your configuration manager clients to access the usual functionality of configuration manager from anywhere in the world as long as they've got an internet connection. I'm going to go into my cloud services here and then go into my cloud management gateway node and create a cloud management gateway. When I sign in here, I'm going to be signing in with an account that has access to my Azure tenant. I need access to my Azure tenant because I'm actually going to be spinning up some VMs in Azure that will be hosting some of the configuration manager services. In the next screen, I'm going to be providing a whole bunch of details around this VM. So I need some certificates so that my clients can authenticate, some details around the Azure region where I want to host the VM, and things like VM instance counts. The final step in this wizard is going to ask me for some thresholds in which I want to be providing some alerting. Obviously, these are VMs and there'll be a lot of inbound and outbound connections, and we want to make sure that we alert you if there's any costs that might be becoming unwieldy. Once the wizard's complete, Configuration Manager will go off and create all the VMs that are required. It'll sync all the configuration from the on-prem database into the Azure VM, and all of your clients that are now on the internet will be able to receive software updates, applications, hardware inventory, and remote actions. Now that your Config Manager site is attached to the cloud, we can enable co-management for your clients. Co-management is a hybrid state for Windows 10 PCs, where the Config Manager client is present alongside the Intune MDM enrollment. It allows you to leverage Config Manager as the authority for certain workloads while swinging more cloud-native scenarios over to the Intune service. The beauty of co-management is the deep integration between Config Manager and Intune. Workloads and features never conflict as the two agents coordinate feature ownership. Once co-managed, you can swing the device configuration workload across and enable targeted clients to remove dependency on GPO and domain controllers. This allows you to change device configuration without asking your users to connect to a VPN for policy updates. When ready, you can move your Windows updates across to cloud management and remove the manual overhead of managing granular Windows updates. Manual Windows update management can be burdensome, and using Windows Update for Business can streamline the time to update your cloud-managed devices. Finally, because the devices are Intune and Azure AD registered, conditional access and remote actions light up. Okay, so now that we've got our Config Manager site connected to the cloud and our devices are cloud managed, what should we actually do with them next? Over to Scott.
So once your devices are in the cloud, you'll want to control some key aspects. Firstly, you'll want to make sure that your devices are patched and up to date. And with Endpoint Manager, you can achieve this in a few ways. So if you've configured the Cloud Management Gateway, you could optionally set up your devices to reach back to on-prem WSUS or Config Manager servers for updates, or you could deploy Windows Update profiles with Endpoint Manager. And Endpoint Manager actually has two different profile types for controlling these updates. Update rings lets you define the timing for when devices should get feature and quality updates, as well as let you customize some of those update settings, things like deferrals, bandwidth optimization, and end user notifications. Feature updates lets you simply deploy a Windows version of your choice to a group of users. For example, I could target my HR department to move to Windows 10 version 2004. When you're done with updates, no doubt you'll want to deliver productivity applications to your users. Again, if you've configured the Cloud Management Gateway, you can continue to keep these application source files stored on-prem in Configuration Manager, or instead deploy them directly from the cloud. And Endpoint Manager has made it super easy to customize and deploy the Office Pro Plus suite directly from the Cloud Console. The same super quick deployment experience is also true for Microsoft Edge Chromium. And once you've got those apps to deploy in the cloud, you might want to configure them with administrative templates, which I'll show you in a demo shortly. After you've set up your devices with the applications that you need, you might focus on remote access to corporate resources. With Endpoint Manager, you'll be able to achieve this in a few ways. Firstly, most on-prem apps and internal websites can be published outside your network with Azure App Proxy, with access protected with tools from the Zero Trust tool belt, like Azure AD's conditional access. So you could, for example, ensure that your users who try and reach internal apps are authenticated against Azure AD, they have to pass an MFA challenge, and that they're also connecting to the app from a managed and compliant device. The second tool is to use Endpoint Manager configuration profiles for VPN and certificates. And you'll see in the demo shortly that Endpoint Manager supports deploying profiles for a number of third-party VPN providers, in addition to the newly announced Microsoft Tunnel VPN server. The other key challenge and opportunity as you enable work from home in your organization is around maintaining security and compliance on devices. And Endpoint Manager allows you to configure endpoint security profiles. Things like encryption, BitLocker, and firewall settings. You can have the ability to deploy security baselines for Windows 10, which includes a standard set of Microsoft recommended security settings. You can also add compliance policies, where you define a standard for device compliance and then ensure that the compliance posture is checked every time the device tries to access corporate data. Matt and I will now demonstrate some of these management workloads. In this first demo, I'll show you how to configure and deploy Windows Update settings in Endpoint Manager.
Starting in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, first we'll head to the Devices section, and we'll scroll down to show the two different policies types for Windows Updates. You'll see here Windows 10 Update Rings, and then Windows 10 Feature Updates, which is currently in preview. So the first one here, Windows 10 Update Rings, allows me to create and deploy a collection of Windows Update settings. So first I create a policy and give it a name, and then I can choose things like servicing channel and pick from a variety of different channels, and then quality or feature update deferral periods. I could configure deadline settings or customize the end user notifications for Windows updates. Now that I've defined my settings for the HR department, I can select HR department from the list of groups, hit next, review my settings, and then go ahead and click create. Now that I've created and assigned my Windows 10 update ring, I can interact with that deployment. I can do things like pause the quality or feature updates or uninstall them. The second profile type that I'll show you is feature updates. So here I'll create an update profile for my sales department, and instead of choosing specific settings, we're simply just going to choose the feature update that we want to deploy. So I'll choose 2004 as the version of Windows, and I'm going to specifically target my sales department this time. So I'll choose sales department, I'll click next and review my configuration, and then click create. So now the targeted devices will upgrade to that version of Windows and go no further. Let's now walk through how simple it is to get Office deployed to your users so they can stay productive at home. You'll see here in the Mem console, if I go to the Apps section and select Windows, I can go ahead and add an Office Pro Plus suite. You can see this is now named to Microsoft 365 apps. If I select that one, I can first customize the app configuration, for example, the suite name, description, the logo, or the category. I'm just going to select now, next for now. And now you can see that I can choose what apps that I want to deploy as part of this suite. In this example, I'm just going to select Teams and review some of the other options. I could choose Visio or Microsoft Project to include as part of this suite as well. I'd also choose the update channel that I wanted to deploy. The other thing that I'll point out is that I could customize language options, so deploy additional language packs. Just choose the update channel. I'll hit next and go to the assignment section. Here I'm just going to choose the sales group again. Select that one, review my configuration options and hit create. Done. Now this Office Pro Plus suite has been deployed directly to my users as they work from home. The other common task is to configure the apps. So you see here in the Mem console, I'm going to head to configuration profiles and I'm going to create a profile for Windows 10 and select administrative templates. If I select create, I'm going to give this a name. In this case, I'm going to set up Edge. And so I'm going to call this Sales Department Edge Settings. Click next and browse through this big tree of available administrative template settings. So if I click on Microsoft Edge, there's a few settings in here. I'm currently working in the computer configuration node, but in the same way, I could have selected the user configuration node and looked at the available Edge settings there. So if I go ahead and just choose one of these random settings, how about allow download restrictions? Okay, so if I read through the settings and what it does, I'm going to block dangerous downloads. Click OK, select next, review scope tags, and choose my assignment group. Again, this is the sales department. Select next, review settings, and done. It's as easy as that.
Now that we no longer depend on GPOs or domain controllers, we need to secure our devices via Endpoint Manager. In this demo, I'm going to show you how to configure your devices with GPO-like settings and configure inbuilt security features in Windows. So now that we've got our PCs cloud managed, we no longer rely on our on-prem infrastructure like domain controllers and group policy for our device configuration. But we still need to lock down our PCs. So where do we start? Most administrators will start in our devices node and our device configuration profiles. Device configuration profiles allow you to configure Windows 10, iOS, Android, and macOS devices. In this example, I would like to stop my users from changing Windows settings on Windows 10. So I'm going to select my platform and select Windows 10 and later. In my profile list, I've got a long list of configuration options such as administrative templates, which are our more legacy GPO style settings, things like VPN, Wi-Fi, and certificates. I also have a profile called device restrictions. In my device restriction profile, I have hundreds of settings that allow me to customize the appearance and personalization of the Windows operating system. For my example, I'm going to use the control panel and settings node and block the settings app. As you can see here, I have a whole bunch of granular ways to restrict things like devices and network and internet settings, but I would like to just block the entire settings app. I'm going to click block here and I'm going to click next. I'm then able to deploy that to an Azure AD group of devices or users. And now wherever these PCs are in the world, they're going to receive that setting and block the Windows Settings app. But we know that Windows contains a whole bunch of security features such as Windows Defender, antivirus, and firewall configuration that may take a little bit more ongoing management. To make the experience really great, we've built this new node called Endpoint Security. In the Endpoint Security node, we've listed out individual scenario-style groupings of settings such as antivirus, disk encryption, and firewall. This allows administrator to manage the end-to-end feature and come back here for things like reporting and exclusion management and so forth. We also have an option called Security Baselines. Security Baselines allow administrator to deploy Microsoft's best practice settings all in one go without having to go across multiple profiles. What I'm going to do is use my Windows 10 security baseline and apply hundreds of settings without having to manage each individual setting. Just like my device configuration profile, all of the settings are grouped, and I can come down to something like autoplay, and the difference between these settings and my device configuration is that they're already pre-configured for me. So you can see here my autoplay settings are already ready to go. I can go next and into assignments, and just like I did before, select a group to deploy these settings to. Now back to my endpoint security profiles. If I select on antivirus here, for example, you'll see a bunch of AV policies that I've created in the past. For this example, what I'd like to do is enable an antivirus quick scan, but put that on my own schedule. So I'm going to select my platform like I did before. I'm going to select a profile and make that my Microsoft Defender antivirus profile. Now, many of these settings would have been configured by my security baseline because they're Microsoft best practice, but there's one particular setting I want to manually configure for my organization, and that's the time at which I want to run my daily quick scan. I'm going to say 12 o'clock because this is when everybody's on their lunch break, and I'm going to tell it to be a quick scan. Like previously, I can come into assignments and assign that to an Azure AD group. With these three policies, I've customized the security experience on Windows 10. I've locked it down to Microsoft's best practice, and I've also configured some security settings that are unique to my organization. The reality of many organizations is that they have legacy on-prem applications. We need to enable our users to continue working, and to do that, we may need VPN access. In this demo, I'm going to show you how to enable VPN clients on Windows 10 devices. Now I would like to grant my users access to some on-prem applications over a VPN. To deploy a VPN to my cloud-managed devices, I'm going to come into the Devices node like I did for device configuration and into my configuration profiles. Now I've already created a configuration profile for my VPN here, so I'm just going to search for that, and I'm going to show you the settings that we've configured. My organization has already deployed a Citrix VPN solution. So all this profile is going to do is configure the VPN on the client side. You can see here I've given it a name and a VPN address for the profile. You can see things like always on and what type of credentials that I'm requiring my users to use. I've got a bunch of really cool settings in here, including things like conditional access. Conditional access integration will make sure that the device meets the organization's security posture before the VPN connection will be allowed. We even have things like split tunneling and which addresses should go via the VPN and which shouldn't. So when I'm using things like my cloud management gateway and cloud distribution points for software updates and so forth, this can help protect the VPN from too much inbound traffic. Just like my device configuration profiles, I would deploy this to exactly the same Azure AD group, and all of those devices, no matter where they are in the world, would receive this policy and automatically be able to connect to the VPN.
So now that we've talked about attaching devices to the cloud and then managing them in a new environment where they're untethered from your internal network, I want to talk about the tools that you can use to build on top of the basics. With Autopilot, you can have brand new devices shipped directly from your supplier to your end users at home. No custom imaging needed. Users simply power on their device and they'll be bootstrapped into Endpoint Management, getting all the apps and configuration that you've set up. With some of the recent updates to Autopilot and VPN, you can even have these devices join on-prem Active Directory in a hybrid Azure AD join mode without even being in direct line of sight to a domain controller. Microsoft Productivity Score gives you insights into the productivity in your organization. It helps you remove barriers to productivity so that everyone can do their best work. And a key component of productivity is the experience your users are having with the technology that you gave them. In Endpoint Manager, there is Endpoint Analytics, which gives you a technology-based insight. You can build a complete picture of key user technology pain points like boot and login time. You can set baselines and drive proactive remediations to bring the biggest productivity gains to your organization. Security is one of the top challenges for organizations when enabling mobility, and Microsoft Secure Score gives you a measurement of your organization's security posture and recommends the most impactful changes that you could make. For example, Secure Score could give you a recommendation to deploy compliance policies for your devices, or warn you of insecure software installed on them, and guide you through to the MEM console when then you could remediate it. So in this session, Matt and I told you how to get ready for cloud management. We showed you tenant attachment and co-management as ways to move your existing devices into the cloud in response to the global pandemic. We showed you how to configure the 4 most common Endpoint Manager workloads across updates, apps, remote access, and security. And then we told you about the tools that you can leverage beyond cloud management to improve your user experiences through Autopilot and Productivity Score, and security with Microsoft Secure Score. There is a ton of related content, which I recommend you go watch to get a deeper insight into each relevant area. I recommend downloading this presentation to see the full list. Or you can visit aka.ms Microsoft Ignite 2020/mem to learn more. Thank you for watching.